Our story begins with a scene of Diana standing outside of Ben's apartment, shivering as she waits for him to come down. Ben greets her, and before he can be too caring, she returns his scarf, which she's used as a poor excuse to come see him in person. Ben thanks her, and there's a brief moment of silence where something unspoken passes between them before they grab onto each other as if it were the last time, because it is. Diana pulls away, trying to keep herself together as she whispers goodbye to Ben, running off into the cold before she changes her mind. 3 years later, in the present moment, Diana waits for her best friend Gabby to pick her up as they chat on the phone. Diana and Gabby have a great relationship, always joking around with the same quirky sense of humor and looking out for each other. Diana expresses that since her return from London, she's been looking for an apartment to no avail, and Gabby offers to contact a college friend of hers who's become a real estate agent. With that underway, Diana starts her new job at a bridal store, a job that constantly tests her patience as she deals with fussy brides who often make unreasonable demands. Diana's naturally kind and non-confrontational, so she shuts herself and her own opinions down to please others. Diana meets Gabby's friend Meg, the real estate agent, a tad late thanks to work. Meg acts like it's no problem, but the interactions between the two seem awkward and tense, as if, despite being polite to her face, Meg doesn't really care for Diana. Even when Diana tries to lighten the mood with jokes, Meg stares at her with a polite, fake smile, trying to mask the disapproval in her eyes. Diana likes the apartment, and Meg hands her the paperwork to fill out, agreeing that if Amy, the landlord, approves, she'll arrange a meeting for them immediately. Amy is particular about who she lets in the building. During their meeting, Amy gives Diana the story of how the apartments came about. Amy used to be an actress, and one day, she was cast to play the role of a mobster's wife in a movie. It was there she met her husband Patrick, who was a famous director. They'd gotten married and taken over the building from his mother, and at the time, the building was bordering on a retirement home. Amy hated being the youngest person in the building, so when she took over, after the seniors left, she gave the building a much-needed injection of youth. Amy and Diana hit it off very well, sharing similar creative interests, non-conventional career paths, and the same sense of humor. When Amy shares that her husband passed away a few years ago, Diana is truly empathetic towards her. Amy, witnessing how genuine Diana is, announces her approval, offering her the apartment. Diana accepts, elated, and the two hug to seal their agreement. On her first night at the new apartment, Diana enters the foyer and spots a familiar name on one of the mailboxes. She glances at it, then looks at the letter inside and reads it again, almost glitching in disbelief. Seeing Ben Weinberger's full name in those block letters instantly brings memories to the surface for her. We're shown a moment from 4 years ago, when she and Ben had their first date. They meet at Prospect Park, where Ben booked one of the boats couples go on and even brought a picnic. Ben's adorably nerdy, and his nervous, awkward energy matches Diana's in the best way. He's also sweet and attentive. He checked the weather before their date and packed foods he knew Diana would like, revealing he's already observed how picky of an eater she is when he saw her pick all the olives and peppers off her pizza at a party once. They share the same sense of humor, with Ben jokingly handing her a box, claiming it's full of olives and peppers as he lays out their picnic. In the present, Diana nervously tries to peek towards the front apartment, and she's aghast when she spots the familiar male figure. She calls Gabby to let her know the development, but she's not able to get any advice as Gabby's distracted by her date before she says anything of worth. The next morning, Diana's woken by a phone call from the moving company, who are outside, waiting for her to come collect her deliveries. She quickly stumbles out of bed and heads downstairs. Ben's just heading out when the impatient delivery man asks him if he's Diana, to which he obviously says no. He's about to leave when Diana pops outside, claiming her things. The two lock eyes, and their discomfort is palpable. Diana directs the delivery man upstairs before coming down to face Ben. Neither of them is quite sure how to approach each other or what to say, and it's obvious. She tries making small talk, noting Ben wears glasses now instead of contacts. Ben is visibly confused as to why Diana's here, and when she gives him the story of how she found the building, he condescendingly asks her if she's staying, as if his reciting there means that she isn't allowed to be there. Diana's surprised by the meanness of his tone and his suggestion. She's literally now moving in. She isn't going to leave just because Ben's there. She tries to smooth it over. It's not a travesty they live in the same building. Ben claims he can handle it, but when she offers they go out for coffee and have a chat, so things won't be so tense between them, he flat out rejects it, stating it's best they stay as just neighbors. Returning to the past, Diana remembers when she told Gabs about her and Ben's first date while they were at an art exhibition. Gabby's excited and starts teasing her about Ben being her boyfriend. Diana's apprehensive about dating him, especially knowing she's going to leave in 6 months. Gabby believes she's overthinking herself into a stupor. She always does. Gabby advises her to enjoy being with Ben in the present moment rather than worrying so much about the outcome. Ben talks to his friend Elliot when Gabby drags her over to them, starting up small talk about the artist who's Elliot's friend from Beirut. Elliot not so subtly suggests that Diana and Ben check out the installation while he and Gabby go grab a drink, leaving the two alone. Diana and Ben sit in the installation joking about how the room feels like an acid trip. They're both the type of people who use humor to cope with awkward social situations or to break the ice, and it works favorably for their chemistry. Ben musters the bravery to ask her out for a second date. At the end of the night, they go back to Ben's apartment, whispering as they sneak to his room so as not to wake his roommates, and they make out like teenagers. We return to the present where Diana asks Amy and Gabby about whether she should move out or not, the answer to which is a resounding no. Amy tells her to woman up and Diana thinks she's right. They're mature adults, so they can be friends, or at the very least be cordial neighbors, though Diana admits she was surprised Ben didn't want to catch up and at how cold he was. It's strange how adamantly Ben seems to not want her there, and Amy suggests it's probably because he's still in love with her. Gabby agrees with Amy, but Diana keeps insisting she doesn't think that's the case, mentioning she finds it silly they can't just be friends. Amy makes a face at that, advising her to not mention or push the friendship thing too much, just let things play out as they might. Diana tells herself she's going to be mature about the situation, but she's finding it hard to focus on her writing when Ben keeps popping into her thoughts. Frustrated, she takes a break, grabbing some ice cream from the freezer to comfort herself when suddenly the apartment goes dark, the power's out. The instance takes her back down memory lane again. In the memory, they have to prepare for a storm and Ben teases her for testing the brand new batteries for the emergency kit with her mouth. Despite all his jokes, Ben genuinely thanks her for her preparedness, offering up his lips to a battery test when suddenly, the lights shut off. As they snuggle into bed, Ben mentions his sociology professor asked them to write down their vision of life. As cheesy as it was, he'd never thought about it before, and it made him wonder what Diana's answer would be. At first she answers she doesn't know, having never really thought about it, but Ben can't believe she doesn't have dreams. Diana levels with him, confessing it isn't that she doesn't have dreams, she just doesn't like to say them out loud. When Ben asks why, Diana explains when she was in 4th grade, she'd had a huge crush on a boy named Dale that she'd intended to keep completely secret, but one day, Stephanie Jacobs had a slumber party, during which the girls played Truth or Dare. Stephanie asked her about her crush in front of everyone. Innocent Diana, following the rules of the game, answered honestly, but the next day, Stephanie had told everyone in school, including Dale. At recess, Dale went up to Diana, asking her out, but he did it as a joke and led the entire school in laughing at her before publicly pantsing her. Ben's aghast at the story, calling Dale a bad word, which Diana, laughing, agrees that he was. She admits she learned an invaluable lesson from the harrowing experience, which was that the only way to protect yourself from pain was to bury your feelings deep within and never let them out. Ben empathizes with her story and tries to cheer her up with comforting cuddles. Diana guarantees him she's truly fine now, but still accepts her consolatory cuddle. And as she settles into his arms, Ben volunteers his own vision for critique. He admits he wants what his parents have, a relationship where they've been together for decades but are still in love. Diana ponders on that a little, turning in Ben's arms to look in his eyes before she kisses him. Present-day Diana knocks on Amy's door, calling for her multiple times, but she gets no answer. She tries the only other neighbor she knows, Ben, knocking on his door. Meg answers the door and Diana's baffled as to why she's there, wondering if Ben is moving. When Meg says no, Diana can't help but question why she's there. Meg calls Ben out and Diana asks him about the power. Ben explains it's a scheduled power cut and that a letter was sent out about it. Diana's eyes flick from Ben to Meg and she can't stop herself from asking if they're dating, which they confirm they are. She stutters an awkward congratulations and the couple nod. Meg keeps a possessive arm around Ben while Ben looks like he wants to run through a wall. Knowing this, Diana's again compelled to ask Meg if she was aware of her and Ben's relationship when she showed her the apartment, and Meg admits she wasn't. It was a small relief, but relief nonetheless. Diana bids the couple goodnight, still trying to process the convoluted situation. Time passes and one day while walking through the park with Diana, Gabby asks how things have been with Ben and if she's seen him or Meg since the blackout. Diana admits she hasn't, wondering about Gabby and the guy she was seeing, Marcus. Gabby complains she texted Marcus a month ago and he never replied, so she's done with him. Diana's proud of her for deciding to separate herself from a man who's clearly using her. Gabby's worth more than that. Later that day, Diana meets with Susan to discuss the draft she sent her. Diana usually writes short stories, but Susan's delighted to find this is a novel in the making. She gives Diana a few character notes like refining the lead female's motivation, and that the lead male, Hugo, needs some personality work. The two spend the rest of the meeting going over specific details, and Diana agrees to send her the next draft. Gabby and Diana attend a rooftop Halloween party, which Diana hates. Gabby redirects her, mentioning she saw some cute guys in attendance, and Diana sarcastically jokes that tonight could be the night they meet their husbands. Diana doesn't realize Gabby stops listening to her the moment she spots Marcus, and she leaves Diana talking to herself as she walks over to spy on him. Diana's approached by a creepy guy, trying way too hard to engage her in conversation while Gabby's gone. Gabby watches Marcus flirting with another girl when she walks over to the punch bowl. Marcus turns around, spots Gabby and starts flirting with her as if nothing's happened. He tries to convince her to sneak away to his place, claiming he missed her, but Gabby resists, instead proposing they go on a date next Friday. Marcus acts cagey at the suggestion, claiming he has plans next Friday but he could call her when he's available, and they could visit each other's apartments. Gabby reluctantly nods, agreeing almost out of shock. She wiggles her way out of his persistent arms and starts to leave, but then turns back, deciding to say what's on her mind. She admits to Marcus she's realizing now their relationship will never be more than it is, which she's okay with, but that she's choosing to opt out of it. Gabby makes it clear to Marcus he's not a bad person for sleeping around but for lying to women about his intentions and leading them on. She tells Marcus never to call her again, walking off on him. Diana fakes seeing someone she knows to slip out of the painful conversation she's having and ends up actually bumping into someone she knows, Julian. They greet each other and Julian mentions he heard about her moving into Ben's building, claiming it was a crazy ex-girlfriend thing to do, suggesting that Diana did it purposefully to antagonize or stalk Ben. Diana's baffled at his take, explaining she would have had no way of knowing, but Julian just nods as if he doesn't believe her, giving her a pitiful hug. After he leaves, Diana finds Gabby on the outskirts of the party, crying. She checks on Gabby, comforting her and offering they go get drunk somewhere else. Gabby happily agrees. Diana drunkenly stumbles home and spots Ben playing guitar inside his apartment. As she enters her place, she nearly trips over a package. Picking it up, she notes it's addressed to Ben in size. Diana rings Ben's doorbell, but as per usual, Meg answers the door, her smile fading as soon as she sees Diana. Diana slurs an explanation for her visit, pointing out the package. Meg tries taking it, but drunk Diana refuses to give it to her at first, insisting it's addressed to Ben, not her. Meg's just as persistent, insisting she'll give it to Ben, and Diana trades her the package for a large handful of candy. Diana tries writing but gets stuck as her mind wanders to the past again. Closing her eyes, she flashes back to the past, to when Ben had to meet her father. Diana's extremely nervous and tries giving Ben tips on how to deal with her dad, who's a confident, logical and authoritarian kind of man. At lunch, her dad asks Ben what he wants to do and he mumbles he's unsure. Diana tries smoothing it over, mentioning he wants to do something in music, and Ben confirms but again mentions he's unsure of what, admitting he's not as organized as Diana. Diana's father beams with pride as he mentions her London trip and how excited her grandmother is about it. Ben erroneously mentions he can't wait to meet her, and Diana's father raises an eyebrow, wondering if he's planned a trip. Ben confesses he hasn't but he'd love to go, inventing poor reasoning about wanting to indulge in the music culture, and something silly about the British invasion, further embarrassing himself. When Diana's father asks if he's considering moving, Ben admits he's thinking about it, much to Diana's surprise. Ben excuses himself to the bathroom, and the moment he's gone, her dad asks her about Ben moving. Diana quickly clarifies she's just as aghast as he is. She and Ben never once spoke about him moving with her, and she doesn't even know why he'd say that. Her father wonders what the couple has discussed, and Diana realizes they haven't spoken about anything. Sighing, he advises her to think through the relationship because Ben moving for her is a big decision. Her father doesn't want her to rush into a big commitment when she should be focusing on herself and her writing, fearing that she may get stuck in a relationship that ruins her future prospects. Diane understands, trying to wrap the conversation as she spots Ben returning to the table. Ben rejoins them, like the happy idiot he is, proudly presenting them with mints he brought from the men's bathroom. Back in the present day, Diana keeps trying to peek at Ben, but she's continuously blocked by Meg. While working out, Amy announces she got a part in a play and invites Diana to the show. Diana's proud of her, eagerly agreeing to come cheer her on. Amy excuses herself to grab some water when there's a knock on the door. Diana answers it. Meg's visibly surprised to see her there, claiming she just wanted to ensure things were okay since she heard banging. Diana apologizes, offering to put down a yoga mat. Meg's about to leave when she spins back, asking Diana if she can lay off Ben. Diana blinks innocently, acting like she doesn't know what Meg's talking about. Meg plainly states she can see Diana when she creeps around Ben's apartment, and Diana plays it off like she's just been sweeping leaves and being neighborly. Meg concedes to her delusion, reminding her about the noise before she retreats. Returning to the living room, Amy wonders what the visit was about, and Diana explains what Meg said to her, claiming she's crazy. Amy asks if she really was creeping on Ben, which Diana sticks to denying, even though she's a terrible liar. She starts getting defensive about just wanting to be friends with Ben, wondering why that seemed such a big deal to everyone, though Amy isn't arguing with her, simply nodding along. Diana rushes to the theater, quickly grabbing her seat just as Amy's play starts. Ben sits one seat away from her, an empty seat where Meg should be. Diana glances across at him, trying not to stare, but she doesn't notice Ben is stealing glances back at her as well. After the show, Diana jovially congratulates Amy, presenting her with a bouquet. Amy invites her and Ben to the show's after party, but they both defer, making the excuse they have work in the morning. Diana reluctantly suggests they walk home together, since they're going in the same direction anyways, and Ben agrees. While walking, Ben admits to being hungry and Diana gently suggests they stop for Italian on the way, trying not to push. Ben agrees and the two end up having dinner together. While looking over the menu, the couple try to make small talk. Ben leads with an erroneous comment about the weather and Diana asks how he's doing, having heard he makes music now. Ben claims he's doing good, he makes music for commercials and is still trying to expand his music career. Diana's genuinely very happy for him, knowing how much it meant for Ben to pursue his passion. The waiter interrupts to take their order. Diana asks for a glass of wine and a lemon wedge for her water, but the snooty French waiter claims they have no lemon. Diana's confused, pointing out they have lemon risotto on the menu, but the waiter insists the lemons are solely for cooking and nothing else. Diana gives the man a look but says nothing, agreeing to her glass of wine and regular water. Ben jokingly wonders aloud if they have lemons, causing them both to crack up. The laughter melts all the residual awkwardness between them and soon, they're back to the humorous witty banter they shared while they dated. Their walk home is filled with familiar laughter. Diana wonders if Meg isn't a theater fan. Ben reveals he and Meg broke up, which Diana's shocked to hear, offering her condolences. Ben claims it's fine, but Diana isn't sure how to respond. Luckily, they've arrived at the apartment building. Diana tries saying goodnight to Ben, but as neither of them leave, Ben works up the courage to kiss her, passionately. For a second, Diana's swept up in the kiss before she pulls away. Ben gets frustrated, unsure of what she wants from him. He confronts her about how she flirts with him. Diana looks genuinely baffled, claiming she doesn't and all she wants is to be friends. Ben can't believe she's mentioning this again, reminding her they've had this conversation before and that he can't be friends with her. He gives up, bidding her goodnight and not even looking back as she calls out to him. Flashing back to the past, Diana recalls how affectionate they used to be with each other. She remembers how she played with him by covering his eyes while they drove out to meet his parents. Ben panics when she first covers both of them, immediately warning her this isn't a fun game, and she compromises, tweaking the rules and only covering one of his eyes. Ben's parents, Barry and Shannon, excitedly greet the couple the second they arrive. Barry offers Diana some of Shannon's mashed potatoes, claiming her cooking is the best. Shannon blushes, confiding in her thick East Coast accent that her secret is butter, and seems genuinely overjoyed when Diana finds them delicious, as though she really wanted to impress her. Barry proudly brags that was what kept them married for 30 years, revealing they got together when they were about Diana and Ben's age, and to this day, they still know how to smear each other's bagels. The Weinbergs are embarrassed, jeering at Barry, but Diana finds it sweet how shamelessly Barry gives affection to his wife. She's starting to see what Ben admires in his parents' relationship, and she completely understands why he'd want it. Diana helps Shannon with the dishes after dinner, and Shannon admits she's glad to have met her, happy to see Ben happy. Reluctantly, Shannon confides how Ben mentioned that Diana seemed unsure of what to do when she moves to London. The look on Shannon's face and her tone suggest she understands Diana's hesitation, particularly from a womanly perspective, and doesn't falter for it all. Shannon simply asks her to be sensitive with Ben when she leaves. Diana's shocked, but she agrees, and Shannon gives her a quick hug before running off to call the boys to finish cleaning. That night, Diana crawls into bed with Ben while a million thoughts run through her head. Ben chirps about Shannon putting Hanukkah gelt on their pillows, and Diana does her best to respond with some level of enthusiasm to all his chatter. He asks if she had fun today, knowing his parents could be a bit extra, and confides they loved her. Diana admits the day was nice and she likes his parents too, but the thought keeps nagging at her. She finally asks Ben why he told her father he might move. Ben shrugs like it was nothing, claiming he'd been thinking about it. Diana gently mentions she's not sure how that would have worked legally, considering Ben doesn't have dual citizenship like she does, and the job market in the UK is tough for immigrants without sponsors. Ben admits he hadn't truly thought through the legality of the decision, and Diana expresses how uncomfortable it was for him to bring up such a big move to her father, when he'd never even discussed it with her. Ben tries assuaging her, saying they would have just had to figure it out, as if love would actually solve everything. His lack of preparedness and forethought isn't reassuring to Diana, but she agrees to what he says, not wanting to cause a fight over it. They murmur I love yous to one another and head to bed. In the present, Diana helps Amy put up her Christmas tree as she confesses this was her husband's favorite time of the year. In fact, today's their anniversary, and Amy tells Diana the story of how Patrick proposed after 3 months. Diana wonders when Amy knew she wanted to marry him, but Amy doesn't think it was a conscious decision. When he'd asked, she said yes without thinking, and figured if that was her first answer, she shouldn't overthink it. All Amy knew then was that she loved him and wanted to try being married to him, so she did, and they stayed together for longer than she'd expected. Diana wishes her a happy anniversary, and Amy does her best to hold back tears, opting to distract herself with snacks. While in the other room, Amy mentions Ben's lease is ending soon, so he'll be moving out, reassuring Diana that the next person to move in won't be another of her exes. Out loud, Diana says how great and how convenient it would be, but her face shows how crushed she is about the idea of Ben leaving again. While walking home with Gabby one day, Diana notices Ben's apartment is empty. The moving process has already begun. Diana sees Amy off as the taxi picks her up to take her to her sister's place for the holidays. Amy's about to leave when she realizes she forgot to take out the trash. Diana reassures her she'll take care of it when she goes up to water her plants, encouraging Amy to go have fun. Later in the evening, Diana suddenly remembers the trash in Amy's apartment. As she disposes of the bag, she looks up and is startled when she sees Ben, causing her to slip and fall, injuring herself on the ice. Ben rushes outside to help her and upon observing the injury, decides to take Diana to the hospital. While they wait for the doctor, Diana wonders why Ben was there. He claims he was just cleaning before returning his keys and Diana thanks him for bringing her, knowing he didn't have to. The doctor arrives, briskly attending to the cut on Diana's forehead. Diana nervously tries asking the doctor if they could just glue it, but he explains the gash is too deep as he starts cleaning the wound. Diana pales when he touches her head, looking like she's about to either throw up or start crying. She stutters to explain how bad she is with needles, pain, and anything happening right now. Ben observes her intently the entire time, appearing at Diana's side the moment he notices fear spread across her face. Ben holds her hand tightly, deftly distracting her from the doctor's probing with jokes. Being so close to him, staring into his brown pools again, Diana has another flashback, recalling the day they broke up. Ben had buzzed Diana into his old apartment. He was chipper and making breakfast, but she could barely speak. Ben was immediately alarmed by her expression and her silence, wondering what was wrong, and Diana blurts out she wants to break up, deciding to rip the band-aid off. Ben is confused and Diana reminds him she's leaving. Ben still doesn't understand, claiming he's aware of that. They talked about it, but Diana disagrees. They didn't talk about anything. In her book, saying we'll figure it out is not talking about it, and 2 years is a long time. Ben desperately insists it's not long, they'll make it work, and he'd come visit her. He loves her and they didn't have to do this. Diana breaks into tears, confiding that him being so sure of her is a lot of pressure. Ben didn't want to pressure her, he just wanted to be with her. Diana tries explaining she wants to focus on herself and her writing these next 2 years, but she doesn't want to hold Ben back from anything either. Ben's baffled as to what she'd be holding him back from, and Diana quotes her father, claiming she doesn't want them to get trapped in something. When Ben still doesn't understand, she says something she knows will hurt, claiming she doesn't want to ruin their friendship. Diana had already made up her mind to break up with Ben, considering it the best logical outcome for both of them. Despite how much it would hurt, a 2-year long-distance relationship would be even more strenuous. Ben's voice nearly cracks as he asks if that's what she truly wants, and Diana's in shambles as she insists. She wants to break up. In the present, the taxi ride home between the two is silent with occasional glances. Ben helps Diana upstairs and into bed, leaving water and medication close by for her, joking he's glad she made it. Diana thanks him again for all his help, and Ben claims he's just being a friend, a comment that gets Diana even deeper into her head. Familiar with the expression, Ben wonders if she's okay and she claims she's fine, just worried about her head, asking him to check it for her. As Ben pulls a lock of her hair back to check, Diana looks up at him as though she's hoping for something. Ben pulls away and almost as if sensing danger, he bids Diana goodnight, leaving her alone with her thoughts. Diana heals and heads back out to work. She and Amy chat upon her return and Amy asks how she's doing. Diana's fine, though her foot still bothers her a little. When she asks how the book's coming, Diana confides it's not doing well. She just hasn't been writing lately. Amy wonders what's wrong and Diana confides she doesn't feel like she knows what she's doing or what she wants to be doing. Amy believes she's thinking too much. If she wants to write, she should write and not settle before she's even tried. Diana worries it won't work out and she's not any good. Amy advises her she can't not pursue her desires because she's afraid of not getting them. Things may not work out, she may get rejected, but Amy convinces her that they're things worth knowing. She understands Diana's trying to protect herself, but she's doing it to a fault and doesn't want her to regret not trying, encouraging her to be brave. Amy gets up to serve the tea and upon her return, she asks how Ben is doing. Diana bursts into tears. She sobs, admitting she doesn't know because he's moved out, confessing she might have messed up. Trying to gather herself, she asks Amy for something stronger than tea. Diana paces outside Ben's new apartment, working up the nerve to go in. She enters the building but hesitates on the stairs again before finally gathering the courage to knock on the door. Meg answers, unpleasantly surprised to see her, and Diana curses, leaving immediately as Meg's about to complain to Ben. Diana's nearly running away from the building when Ben comes out, calling after her, wondering if she's okay. Diana explains she's fine. Amy gave her his new address and apologizes for interrupting him and Meg. Diana wonders if they're back together and Ben admits they're figuring it out. Diana struggles to keep her voice and breathing steady as she confesses she's still in love with Ben, tearing up as she apologizes for hurting him in the past. Diana admits she was scared, confused, and thought that if she ended things, it'd be less painful later on, but it wasn't. When she saw him again after her return, she told herself she just wanted to be friends with him, trying to convince herself maybe she was just lonely, but she realized that wasn't it. She thinks about Ben all the time. Diana isn't sure that if they got back together, they'd last forever or simply break up again, but she still loves him and wants to try. Ben feels as though this is unfair. It took him forever to get over her and he's finally okay now. He doesn't want to go there again. Diana understands, begging him not to say no for the same reason she did, admitting her decision was stupid. Ben apologizes, trying to let her down easy. Diana's utterly heartbroken, but after a while, she uses the grief as fuel. She throws herself into her writing, eventually completing and submitting a few samples as well as the new draft of the novel for Susan. One day, while walking home with Gabby, she points out Ben sitting on the steps of Diana's apartment. Diana's stupefied, but Gabby quickly pushes her towards him, encouraging her to just chat with him for a while. She wonders what brings Ben here and he claims he's just picking up mail. After a brief moment of silence, he jokes about them being warrants for his arrest, and they run a bit about him having to escape to Mexico for his overdue parking tickets. As always, the laughter melts the tension between them and Diana tentatively asks what he's up to, testing the waters. Ben claims he's got to go pick up dry cleaning and Diana's disappointed, till he asks if she wants to come. Perking up, Diana agrees and the two walk in silence together down the street.